Okay, so we found a little thing with Glenn Beck and Teeka Tiwari, and he's really positive that our current Bitcoin bear market is over. Here's the current chart right now. I think he's been saying it's over for a little bit. Actually, you know, when you look at this bull market that happened from 2015 on forward, it went up there kind of in a bubblish type of fashion. So anyway, Teeka basically decided that this is our low, and we are now in a new bull market. Personally, I happen to disagree with him. I do like the guy. I was watching the video. I did watch the video here, and he does seem like he's a straight shooter type of guy, that he believes in what he believes. And a matter of fact, some of the study in this video is similar to some of the techniques that I use. You'll find one part where he talks about comparing to an analog, which is, I think it was the tech bubble that he compared to. I also compared to analogs, but I feel like he didn't compare to enough analogs. He only compared to that. Maybe he compared to more. Who knows? I just think he's missing some pieces to the puzzle, and I think he's a little soon to this venture. Anyway, you could look this up on YouTube and listen to what he has to say. So here's something to think about, okay? Here's Bitcoin today, July 27. Expert calls a bottom, okay? So here we are in this upward rise. And yeah, to the even trained eye, it actually does look like a possibility that a bottom is in, but at the same time, it doesn't look for sure. He doesn't only say this because of the chart, but he also says this because of good news. And what I'd like to say about good news is that good news is not going to change, and people don't get this. With a new powerful rising technology like blockchain that's just going to be growing into the future, news is only going to cause these movements. See those movements that go along? News causes these rises, falls, what have you. But what I look at is the overall line. In this case, we have the 100-day moving average. If you'll look at this, and I don't know how people can argue with me because it's clearly got a shape to it, a very easy shape to it, yet people can't understand where I'm coming from, and it's really quite silly. So yeah, news does affect things. Okay, you got ups and downs, what have you, but I look for a bigger picture, and that is a longer term view with a moving average to see where overall things are going to go, right? So when you look at this, you kind of understand that even if this is a new bull market, well, it's not going to rise all of a sudden straight up like this. People say it can because they don't get it. They don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, you could have a curve of the blue line here, the 100-day moving average. That curve can go nice and tight, which I don't think it's going to go that tight myself, or it can go longer, okay? But you're not just going to start from here and go straight up into the stratosphere without very common stepping patterns that are going to occur, as we call them, waves and so forth like that. Okay. Now, to try to help my friends understand one of the reasons why Teeka Tiwari very much could be wrong is this chart I made here. I showed the current today, July 27th of Bitcoin, and I said, yes, let's look at this. And it does look like it very well could go up. And then I put a chart to compare it to at the bottom. Sometime in the past on this chart, which I'll tell you what that chart is shortly, sometime in the past, experts called a bottom here. And if you look at this, wow, 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 this looks more powerfully of that this really is a bottom and that we are moving into a new bull market. This looks more reasonable and powerfully something to agree with, even so, than this. as this is really just continuing a pattern that's already been occurring. So this is even more powerful. If I looked at this, I would be more convinced we're in a new bull market than I would by this pattern here. But so I shared this with my friends, and I did a little trick. I said, hey guys, I want you to look at this and just give me your honest opinion without getting too in depth. Don't these both look like they could be in a new bull market? And people looked and they said, this one, yeah, they think it is. They agree with a lot of the experts. But this one really looks like it's in a new bull market. And so they were just all on top of that. And I did this to illustrate. The next chart example shows us what really happened on this chart, which fooled us into believing we were in a new bull market. Okay, but then what actually happened was a devastating drop occurred after this point right here. And I wrote down this right here, which you can read for yourself, but let me explain it so you can understand it. Basically, listen, if you're going to get in this industry with trading in cryptocurrencies or in stocks, there is a truth that is true, that comes to be true, and it is that the 1%, the people that own most of the money in the world, they can afford to pay analysts, the most intelligent analysts in the world, to figure out what's going on. And they can also write the software, the best software in the world. They have the money to do so, to cause manipulated scenarios, okay? So one of the things I always look at, and which has helped me a lot, is this understanding to look for manipulated scenarios, okay? And this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that Teeka Tiwari, and I don't mean to pick on him because this guy has done great work in the past. I just think he's wrong this time. I'm not putting the guy down, but I'm saying I think he's shooting a little too soon on the gun. I believe we have one more deep drop coming, okay? Not just because it happened here. This is just an example of why I believe this. But I believe we have one more deep drop coming. And I'll try to explain a little bit more why that's the case. Ouch, 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 oh, God, that hurt. Ouch. Now, just keep in mind, like I said, Bitcoin's not a bubble, but it moves in a bubbly fashion. The difference between Bitcoin's bubbly fashion and bubbles is that bubbles will go up to the top and then drop back very close to the bottom, if not even below the bottom. That's what a bubble is. Bubbles are usually artificially inflated. So over, say, 10 years, Bitcoin, because it's such a technology that's going to grow, over 10 years, it's meant to go up, 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 up in a straight line. But if you understand how things go in a straight line, that they don't actually go in the straight line, but they actually go according to emotions of the people that place their bets on these things, then you'll start to notice certain patterns of how these things will rise and not in a straight line. From the very beginning, we rose very quickly because Bitcoin was young and had less people looking at it and investing in it. Bounced up very quickly, crashed in a short bear market, rose very quickly. At this point, a lot more people started getting interested. So now similar shapes of this up here was extreme exhilaration. People were very excited. People were selling everything to get in. And as usual, when that occurs is when people lose so darn much of their money because people go according to emotion when they should not. The 1% who makes all the money in the world doesn't do that. The 99% tends to do things like that, unfortunately. So the way that Bitcoin's going to move into the future is up, curve down, up, according to these emotions. News moves along here, but emotion moves here. Exhilaration, extreme despair. They don't get into this because they're so scared by this. It keeps going down. They're still believing. Then at some point, they get disgusted and they drop everything. And then the smart people buy in here and they take what they sold. And this is how these things go. And then they rise up. So what's going to happen with Bitcoin is going to perform another maneuver similar to this. It's going to go down maybe in a sharp curve like this, like some people are predicting now, or maybe, as I believe, a little longer curve perhaps that moves like this or even longer than that. And if you understand these principles, you can really do well with Bitcoin and the other cryptos. So to understand certain aspects of bubbly type of products, we want to look at some bubbles of the past. Now, this bubble here, I kind of have a weekly chart connected to a daily chart because it's hard to find the full chart for the great bubble of 1929 in America. That occurred just before the Great Depression. And oftentimes bubbles do create great problems in economies, unfortunately. So one of the interesting things to pay attention to is when we have an extreme turn. Often when we have an extreme turn, we see this little sharp drop here that marks the space before a big change occurs. The smaller the changes, the smaller the sharp drops, but we still tend to see a sharp drop that shows the end of a bear market. Usually before you get a new bull market, which this was a tiny little bullish market, maybe we wouldn't even call it that, but there's a principle we're still trying to look at here. And that's that when this happened, experts were calling that a bottom, right? Because it rose up so beautifully. People looking at the chart at this point were very excited. But usually when the experts are all agreeing on something, there's more trouble ahead. And we want to get that into our blood to understand that usually when all experts are agreeing, there is trouble ahead. And in Bitcoin, I am seeing this occurring, which is at least one more drop, maybe even more, who knows, not too many more drops, but an extreme drop when everybody's in. Everybody believes the experts. They're all getting in. And then the next drop comes, and I believe Bitcoin is heading to one more drop. And we'll usually see this symbol, this sharp drop, a sharp drop, before we rise again. To not belabor the point too much, let's just look at sharp drop, okay? Here, excitement phase, sharp drop after. We got a sharp drop here, starts rising up. If you stretch that chart out, it's much longer than it looks here. This is a very compacted chart. But then one more sharp drop came and stole a lot of people's money, getting them not to even want to play anymore. And that's where the big money came in and got in for a nice bull market there, and so forth. So that's a very good chart that's very interesting. Now, let's take a look at the Nasdaq, okay? The Nasdaq is one of the things he did actually look at. Let's just look at when the big changes occur, right? The big changes occur. We usually have these fake outs that are really exciting. Here we go again. But they often lead to that time where people are just throwing up, sorry to say, they're disgusted. And that's when the big money's buying in, when everyone else is disgusted, and then we have the new rise. So here's a bubble that occurred in China. So now here we got a crash, but we look at crash down, and we see this. Now this is a deep crash down. And when we're looking at a chart like this right here, boy, we're just excited. And it goes down a little bit, and even up here, maybe we're still just excited. If we're not looking at the rest of this, and that's similar to what we're seeing on the chart in Bitcoin now, we're seeing, and it's really not even as powerful as some of the examples I'm showing you, which makes it even more plausible that I'm going to be correct on this. But, you know, once again, yeah, you have this chart that looks positive. You know, it's the low here matches the low here a bit. It just seems to be curving, to be slowing down its drop, right? You know, here to here to here to here. Seems to be slowing down its drop. So, you know, we're thinking that this could be the new bull market. But like, once again, you know, we take a look at this. And let's actually go back to this one. This is the exciting rise. This is the highly convincing rise. That was powerful and long. If the thing I want you to also notice is these sharp drops here, you get some of these that happen before a new bull market takes place, and then you often get that final one that occurs, that final sharp drop. So I've said that to basically share with you that one of the things you want to look for, this fake, this head fake, potential head fake that could be there, that could be leading to this kind of a scenario here, right? And this scenario actually did occur back here in a very similar timeline, right back here. This was where people were all excited that the bull market was going to continue on, okay? But so you always want to look for that extra drop, you know, that could come along. In this case, it's very possible that Bitcoin is not going to take as long as it did in the past, or it could, to climb, to begin its new bull market. You know, we're calling it over right about here, when Bitcoin actually had another drop and another drop. See, that's the second one that's not even on the other chart, right? But time-wise comparing, right, we're calling the end of this what appears to me to be just too early. So when we look at where this chart is compared to everything we've already looked at, we see one sharp drop, okay? I am looking for a second, at least a second, sharp drop like this before I'm convinced we're in a bull market. And I'm also looking to buy in at that sharp drop. Here, before the bull market was in, we had sharp here before a little fake out bull came, right? Then we had a sharp here before the real bull market began, okay? So I am expecting another sharp drop like that. I'm expecting it to come over here somewhere, and for this to possibly fake us out for a little bit or even a short time before it makes that sharp drop, okay? So now the question is, how are we going to plan when to get back into Bitcoin, as well as perhaps some other currencies that will probably reverse around the same time? Ouch, 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 oh, God, that hurt. Ouch.